Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Yesha if you're new here, and today I wanted to make a video about if it matters where you go to medical school. And I know that a lot of people apply to med school and then they get into really great med schools that maybe don't offer financial aid, and then they get into these lower tier medical schools that offer them a full ride. How do you make those decisions? Does it matter where you go? Does it matter if you're MD or DO? Things like that. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents. So if you're deciding about where to go to medical school and you are, a pre-med who's watching this, congratulations if you have this decision. That's very exciting that you've gotten into more than one medical school. And here is my take on if it matters. So the long and short of it is, yes, it does matter where you go to medical school. Now, if you just want to be a doctor and you don't care, you're not thinking about what specialty, you just want to become a doctor and that's your only goal, then I would say no, it doesn't matter where you go to medical school. Unfortunately, once you're in medical school, you realize that it's just a race to get the highest step score. It's just a race to get into the best residency program, and are you going to apply something competitive? It's always looking ahead at the next step, right? I think when you're in college, it feels like just getting into med school is that's your only goal. But once you're in med school, there are so many more things to consider. And I don't know who created or coined this phrase that getting into med school is the hardest part, because that is absolutely not true. It is absolutely not the hardest part. All of med school is hard, and getting into residency is hard. So there are a lot of reasons why I do think it matters where you go to medical school. Now, I went to a medical school that was totally new. It was brand new. So not a lot of faculty, the faculty were supportive, but not a lot of support in terms of getting into residency programs that are outside the state of Michigan, for example, or even just research, or there were so many things that were not already well established. Going to a very well established medical school will have all of those things sorted out. They will have IRBs ready for you. They will have a ton of research support. They will have projects that are already basically at the very end that you can jump on and get publications. There are so many things. They will have established rotation sites, which is something that a lot of new med schools and DO med schools do not have. So there are a lot of advantages to going to a very well established medical school, whether it's a top 50 or whatever it is. I think that going to an established medical school gives you that advantage over going to a newer or lower tier med school where maybe those things are not possible or not established. So research is one, established rotation sites, and then the third is having a lot of home programs. So this matters especially if you're applying to things that are more competitive, things like urology, ophthalmology, dermatology, plastic surgery, things that require more competitive scores, that require publications, a true interest in that field. I think it's very helpful to have a home program, not only to fall back on, and not even just fall back on, but to match into, in case you are interested in staying, or if you don't get in anywhere else and you want to have a backup program. It's very helpful to have a home program. Secondly, having a home program means that you have a department, you have residents that you can jump onto research projects with, you have a program director that can mentor you, that can tell you if you're competitive for their program or other programs, that can call up other people in the field that they know. Those are all things that are advantages of having a home program, aside from just the residency existing at this hospital, right? And of course the ability to do an elective very easily in whatever specialty that is, or rotation. These are all things that you don't really think about when you're applying to medical school, but become very important when you're applying for residencies. But another reason why it's very, very important to go to a strong medical school, if you have the ability and if you are able to, I should say, is the networking. Honestly, I think that this is really where having a strong medical school really plays in. If you can get letters of recommendation from really top tier faculty that are well known in your field, that will go a long way. If you get a very ivory tower famous person to make some phone calls for you, that goes a long way. Now, there are a lot of applicants who end up at top tier programs because they were at a top tier medical school, and it has very little to do with their step scores. It has very little to do with their entire ERAS application, and very much to do with who they know. And I don't know if it's a dirty little secret anymore, but that's really how you play the game. That's how you play the game. You have to make connections. You have to know people, and your application can help you, but some of those doors will always be closed to people at lower medical schools unless they do like climbing Mount Everest type things that easily open for someone at a top medical school because they know the right person. I have seen it firsthand. So, and it's not from me, it's from people that I've seen go really, really far based on just who they know. And I obviously am someone who networks a lot. I love making connections, not because I want to use people, but I think it's very valuable to know a lot of people, because you never know like when someone will need you and when you might need someone. And I think that going to a top medical school can only open these doors for you. It opens a ton of doors. They know a lot of people, and they know how to get you where you want to go. Top medical schools also have like a lot of research funding and a ton of projects going on in whatever department that you want to be in. So for example, if you are interested in dermatology, it'll be much easier to get involved in a dermatology project if there is a residency affiliated with your hospital, with your school, than someone who's at a medical school with no derm, there's just only private practices that they're affiliated with, who may not really be super interested in doing research with medical students, or you might just get a case report out of it, but not something more high-powered. So those are also things to consider. And again, things that you don't think about when you're applying to med school, right? So I think it's very important to keep that in mind, especially if you are going into med school, knowing kind of what you want to do. And of course, it's equally important if you don't know what you want to do, because I think that once you discover something, and you discover that like, yes, I am interested in derm, for example, having a department there and knowing that like you have a very good chance of matching because of like where you are in medical school is very comforting. And it'll be a lot more challenging if you were at a place where you had to create those connections all by yourself. It would add like a whole added layer of stress for you as an applicant. It's definitely not impossible, and I think that if you only got into like one med school, for example, everything is possible. Anything is possible, and I definitely encourage you to obviously go to whatever medical school that makes sense for you, because anything is possible. But I will say that it might be more challenging, and that might add more stress to your life, and it might even add added years of research year or something if you don't match the first time, or you have to do a research year in order to match, or you have to do an intern year or a categorical or a prelim position because you didn't match, for example. So just things to consider that you may not have considered when just applying to med school. So yes, the long and short of it is, yes, it does matter where you go to medical school. And of course, anything is possible. If you only got into one medical school, it's fine. And I think that you can end up where you want to go with the right amount of hard work. But I do think that going to a top medical school does offer you an advantage that is not super obvious when applying to school. I do think that's even more important now because step one is pass-fail. So the hard work that you could put into step one to show that you are super smart, I got a 295 on step one, that's gone now. And who you know and who you can network with becomes even more important. So really consider this when applying to medical school, because now with step one being pass-fail, it's just going to be even more important who you know. The third thing that I think is so important, and you don't realize until you're reviewing applications, but large med schools have like so much more money and so many more awards. And that sounds silly until you're reading applications where like people have won all kinds of awards that didn't even exist at your med school, right? Like people get like, I don't even know, but there's an entire section called like awards and, awards and something, scholarships or something. And if you go to a medical school that has a lot of money, there are a lot more awards to be won. I'll just put it out there. So like, there are definitely ways to like pad an application almost, and I think that it's much easier to do at larger medical schools that are established, that have lots of money, than newer med schools that are still trying to figure out like how things really run, where to send students to for rotations, things like that. I think that that's another place where you will get a serious advantage going to a established top medical school. the long and short, like I said, is that yes, I do think it matters, and if you have the opportunity to go to a top medical school, you absolutely should. Anything is possible. I didn't go to a top med school, and it's fine. Like, I made it happen for myself. I'm exactly where I wanted to be when I started med school, so I'm super happy. And I think that whatever you do, you can make your dreams come true. But if you would like a little bit more help along the way, going to a top medical school can really help you. And of course, if it's financially feasible for you and if it makes sense in your life, you should absolutely take advantage of it. But if you are watching this video because you're deciding between two programs, I do think that there is an advantage to going to a top med school over a med school that's, you know, like mid or lower tier. But at the end of the day, you're going to be a doctor and you're going to be fine. And I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.